Today, I'm so excited for you to meet a very dear friend of mine who started as a yoga student through my teacher training program, and then I've just been able to watch her blossom and grow as a teacher and as a coach. So I can't wait to introduce you to Lindsey Carothers.
Hi, baby. So great to see you here. Oh my gosh. All
So
right,
great to
so
see you.
you guys, Lindsay is so awesome. She is, I first met her. I just was bragging about you. I first met her when she entered my teacher training program in New York City, and at our Giving Tree Yoga studio, and that was an intense. You did the intensive, right? So we did. No,
It
you
was
did three
weekends.
months. You did
Yeah.
weekends. It was intense regardless.
Yeah, that didn't
Yeah.
change. It was still intense. Hmm.
So I first met her there, and what was so fun is that anybody who knows Lindsay knows that she's insanely talented. She's got such an incredible background, and I love that you wrote about this in your story. I'm going to jump around because my brain is doing that this morning. But you have such a huge background in musical theater, even on Broadway and touring, and all these really incredible, exciting things. And so before we kind of jump in more so to the book, I want you just to kind of talk about your experience and I know we have to acknowledge like what's happening behind me because I'm not home, everybody. If those of you are like, where are you? We are in Anthony and I are in Utah. We are at the doTERRA convention out here, selling the book, promoting, telling people about this incredible book, Raise Vibration, where 52 authors contributed their stories of resilience. And so we're staying in this really adorable Airbnb in Salt Lake City, and I have a washing machine behind me right now. I don't know
We
if you
can't
like.
actually see it. You can't
Yeah,
see it on Instagram,
no,
maybe
I
on
can't see it.
Facebook.
You can see it on, yeah, I think on Facebook and Zoom you're gonna be able to see it. Sorry, Instagram. We always get everything on Instagram, so like sorry, Instagram. But I've actually like put a blanket and a pillow trying to hide it, and I just no, it didn't even happen. So we're like, we have to just acknowledge that I'm this random place in Salt Lake City. And I have my, you know how you guys, I don't know if you've ever done dual lives, but I'm having to like jimmy my phone up with my computer and I forgot my supports. So I'm using two Tide or something. I think it's Tide, but like those little washer packets that you throw in the washer to hold my phone up. So just to kind of let you into my world and what I'm looking at, I'm seeing two
Ooh,
little Tide pads there.
just a squishy tripod. That's all.
It is a squish, and it actually works because like squishy, maybe it's gonna like be a new thing. Anybody who's like brilliant innovator, Lindsay, um,
Sure.
just come up with this. This is awesome. So
Yeah.
I would love for you just to kind of tell us a little bit about you. You relocated. You're no longer in New York, so give us a little bit of an overview about you.
Yeah. So I feel like it kind of has to go back to COVID. I was living in New York for 10 years. And
Yeah.
when 2020 hit, I moved back to Pittsburgh with my family. So I was living with my parents and I was like 29. And I was like, okay, living with my parents at 29, didn't
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
expect this, but I was grateful for the pause and to sort of take the time to slow down in terms of what I was doing in my career. I was teaching a lot of yoga and I was
Yeah.
auditioning full time and doing shows. And it felt like hamster wheel.
Mm,
And when 2020 happened, it was like, oh, I had to sit with myself and a lot of stuff came up and it was really good for me. So being in Pittsburgh, I have a friend that's a casting director who's also from Pittsburgh, and so after a few months we were just like, we're both here, what can we do? Like we can do something.
mm.
And actually that's when I started working with my life coach. um Basically I was just like, help me with my finances, but it was so much deeper than that. As we know, like the surface
Yeah.
problem is never the problem. It was the problem, there's
Doorway.
always,
Doorway
yeah,
to
it's just a
everything
doorway.
else. Yeah.
Exactly. So learning a lot with her. I actually met my partner during COVID in 2020. We like social distance dated in a park,
No
and then,
way! I didn't know
yeah,
this. How cool
yeah,
is
so
that? Oh my,
met him.
social distancing.
Yeah, we were like, I guess we'll go to a park and like sit on a bench, but
That's like
it
old
was
school
nice.
courting. Like I love
Yeah,
it.
it was actually
Oh,
so nice because it was like not going to a bar, not
yeah.
like, it was just daylight, and we had, it was, the sun was out, and we talked. The first time we went on a date, it was 9 hours long, and I was like, oh,
Oh my
you know to
gosh.
be able to talk to somebody for 9 hours, that I can't do that with everybody. So it's like,
No.
cool, that
Oh,
was
that's
a
so
good
cool.
sign. Yeah, so met him,
started these classes. Actually, I also was on a game show in 2020. I'm just giving you like my
What?
2020 to now.
You have like the most exciting life. Like I swear, you guys, wait till you need to follow her and like check her out. Seriously, go ahead, go ahead. A
So I
game
was
show?
on,
What game show? Don't tell me The
yeah,
Price is Right because I'll be super jealous.
no, it was $100,000 pyramid.
Oh my God,
Yeah, it's
my
actually on
second
Hulu.
favorite.
So if
It
you want to
is?
watch it,
Oh,
it's on
okay, I
Hulu.
definitely
It's,
do. I definitely
yeah,
do.
season 5, episode 2 with Dr. Oz and his daughter Daphne. So yeah. So that was like, and for me, that was my full-time job in 2020. I was like, okay, yoga's canceled, fitness is canceled,
Oh
acting is
my
canceled.
gosh.
I'm gonna just like study for this show
Yeah.
as if I just did it as if I was going to win. I just prepared. I was like, this is the only thing, this is my focus. So I was just
What
obsessively
a
practicing.
wild, like, how
Yeah.
do you, like, so many people have COVID stories, but like, you were like, I was preparing for the $25,000 career.
Yeah, I was training my brain to think of lists
That's
of random
awesome.
flowers and like just like categories. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it did keep me like, I have to say, like working with my coach and then having the game show was like, and I was sort of like, had been on unemployment before COVID because I did a show that was maybe going to Broadway. We thought it was called The Flamingo Kid. We thought it was
Mm.
going to go to Broadway. So I had collected unemployment and then got off unemployment. So I was kind of used to that, like used to being on it. So when COVID happened and everybody went on it, I was like, I'm kind of over it. Like I want to do something.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
still like saw people, there were people still making money and working. And I was like, what if I could just do that and not feel, it started to make me feel very limited to collect that amount of money, but then you can't make more because you have to report it. It just, I didn't want it
Yeah.
anymore. I was like, I'm doing something else. So I started teaching voice lessons and I virtually, and then I
Mm.
was training for this game show. So I ended up winning some stuff. Do you want me to tell you what happened?
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
So I won $50,000 and a trip to St. Lucia.
Oh my gosh.
So that was like, great. And meanwhile, like after the show, I was like, I didn't win 100,000. I was like, wait, I just got $50,000 on a
That's
trip.
pretty
Like,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah. But
You'll
how
take
fast
it.
our
You'll take
brain
it.
goes, like, but it could have. But if you
Yeah.
watch
To
it, you'll
look
see
for
what
what's
happened.
wrong, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I win that and then came back to Pittsburgh and my friend and I were like, what can we do? We met at a coffee shop. We were like, we can teach some classes. What would they be? We didn't. And this was where my coach was so helpful too. Cause I was like, I don't know how to have a business, but if I think about even to like teacher training, or even when I was yoga teacher training, and even when I was acting, I was always like, I want to have my own thing. I want to be able to help people, but I don't know how. I felt like I didn't have the tools to like, how do you start a business? How do you open a studio? How do you
Mm-hmm.
offer something and like sell it, or like have an offer for people to take you up on? It was just so like, that felt so elusive to me. So
Yeah.
finally, I feel like when I was working with my coach, we were able to create that together. And that was so helpful. So like, even with my friend Jarrett, he's the casting director. Now he's back in New York. So we created 3 classes. We offered them at my old dance studio, which felt so cool.
Oh
Cause
my
it
gosh.
was like, we're doing it here, like with
From your
these kids.
childhood? Oh, that's
Yes.
so
And,
cool.
and it's so cool. Cause I ran into, also it was very serendipitous. I ran into the dance, I was singing at like an outdoor thing and my dance
Mm.
teacher was there and I was like, can we use the studio? And she was like, yes. And her kids do theater. It's called M&M Dance Academy. It was just like so full
Cute.
circle. So we did those classes. Then from those classes, this is like the long version, trying to wrap
It's
up like
okay.
this
It's
story.
okay. No worries.
So we're offering those classes, and then the owner or the CEO of a charter school saw our flyer and was like,
Mm.
a teacher just left. We have this opening for like the theater teacher, like the director of the theater program.
Wow.
Will you guys come in and would you do it? And we were like, okay. Like it was like a Thursday night. He called me. I was like, what? We go in on Friday. We like look at the school. There was no curriculum. They were like, you just do whatever you want. And we were like, okay. So we like had our 3 classes that we had been teaching. So we
Yeah.
used some of that, but then we were also just like, we know what to do. Like, this is what we do. So
Right.
we just started teaching them. It was like in school every day. Like we were back in high school every day. So that was also like my COVID experience was showing up to like we had a place to go. And
Yeah.
we always said like the kids we needed them as much as they needed us. It was
Mm.
like this beautiful mutual, like we had a place to go and be useful, and the kids were learning
Yeah.
so much from us, and they were teaching us so much. And we did a virtual play with them, and then in the spring we did a musical, and we had like the shields, but we like did a full-blown thing, and it was like amazing, and they were all incredible, and it was just so like
Wow.
it was the most, like we stepped up as directors. I'd never been a
Yeah.
director. I was like, I guess I'm a director. I guess I'm a teacher now. So that kind of brings me to the last year, so 2021, my
Mm.
partner had got a job as a lawyer in Philly, and the school year was ending. And I was like, you know what? I think I could be a coach. And my coach was like, you are a coach. And I was like, oh, right. Because also I had been doing some yoga privates during
Yeah.
COVID on Zoom,
Mhm.
but were kind of turning into like coaching sessions. Like we would do sub yoga, but then it would be
Yeah.
mostly a conversation.
Yeah.
And I loved that. And I could see like week to week, my clients like, oh, I did this thing, or I tried this thing that we talked about, and this changed. And it was like, oh, this is fun. Like there's like, that was really exciting to me. So, and also having been a high school teacher, like being a teacher, I was like, I already am, like, I'm a yoga teacher. I am a coach. So,
Yeah.
oh, and we moved to Philly, and just I opened the doors of my coaching business, and I've been doing it full time ever since. And now I live in Morgantown because my partner was a lawyer, hated it so much. He
Oh my God.
he quit, and we moved back to Morgantown, where I'm living now, Morgantown, West
Mm.
Virginia, because he opened a gourmet brownie bakery called the Brownie House with his
What?
mom.
Oh my
So,
gosh, you guys are both
yeah.
so creative and like entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
I
So now
love
we're
it.
just like we're doing it to like, it's so fun to be able to share that with him. And
Yeah.
if anybody wants some brownies, it's Brownie House Brownies
Yes,
on
please.
Instagram. Yeah, little plug.
Yeah.
But they're so good. And his mom had the Brownie House 15 years ago, and it got to the point where she would have had to expand or close it. Like it was, she couldn't
Mm.
run it. So he decided to run the business side. She's baking. They have 8
Oh my God,
employees,
that's
maybe
so
10.
fun.
So yeah. So now we're in
People are like,
Morgantown.
people always
Yeah.
say like, don't go into business with your family. I'm like, if you're not okay with your family, like, yeah, who are you gonna go to business with? Like, I mean, Anthony and I have been business partners ever since, for 15 years or so. Like, I mean, I don't know who else I would trust as much as my partner, but I know not everybody, not
Yeah.
everybody can do that with their family, I guess, but I mean, that's so special if you can. Like,
Yeah.
what
If
an
you can.
incredible connection for him and his mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Well, uh,
That's
yeah.
that's where it brings us to today. Yeah.
What a story. Thank you. Because I mean, we haven't had a chance to catch up. So that was, I mean, selfishly, I was really enjoying that. Like, because I haven't
Yeah.
heard anything that's been
Great.
going on with you. I know you've been teaching a lot. And yeah, so I just want you to speak a little bit because about your story. What this book is, it's 52 different authors. When lockdown started happening in March of 2020, anybody who's a teacher, coach, somebody who likes to be of service in the world, I know it was in your heart too, like, what can I do? Because everybody is so consumed by fear. We didn't know what was going to happen, what was going on. And I thought, we can focus on our fear, or we can recognize that
Oh,
we're, yeah.
also, your earrings are kind of like tapping your,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh, thank you. They're so
they're
sparkly,
beautiful,
dangly.
but and they're like,
Thank you. You know
yeah.
what? I might just have to take them off. I'll do this. I don't know if that's gonna work. I'm just
It's
gonna
still
take it
kind of
off.
doing it. Yeah.
I'm gonna take them off. I'm gonna take one off and be like a really cool, like, one earring girl, and then you're gonna just start a
Yes.
trend, and there we go. Okay, perfect. So people were focusing on their fear, and we're all focusing on fear and consumed by it, and we're forgetting how many things we've already overcome, and really capitalizing on who we are, remembering who we are, and so I asked friends and family, some colleagues, some students, like, hey, do you want to write a story about resilience, something you overcame in your life, so that you can share it with others, because storytelling is so powerful. And you said yes. I was so thrilled you said yes. I couldn't believe I had 52 authors say yes, and I thought that can't be a coincidence. So being a teacher of the chakras for 20 plus years and teaching about shadow work, shadow processing, I turned it into a weekly guide for alchemizing the human experience. And so each chapter features a person from my life, an extraordinary person from my life, who has written something about something that they learned that they wanted to share. And then we have a journaling prompt. We have chakra wisdom in there, different exercises to focus on daily miracles and essential oils that help to go with that week's theme. Amazing quotes, and you and your theme that of you, and you don't have to go through sequentially. Like you can turn to the front where there's a checklist of listing all the themes, and you can tap in and be like, what do I want to do this week? Like I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling like I need a self-esteem boost, or I'm feeling like I'm having a hard time accepting what's going on in my life. And then you jump to that chapter, and yours is inner child, and you jump to that chapter, and then you read this beautiful story that you wrote about connecting with that. I chose inner child for you with that because it was so, you have such a childlike approach to life, which I absolutely love. And I think it's so important for people to connect with, because once we get aligned with who we are, life becomes really fun. It doesn't extract any of the pain or the suffering that happens when we go through devastation or disappointment or loss. But what it does is opens us up to the immense amount of joy and co-creation that's possible in our lives. And so I want you to share a little bit about your story that you wrote called I Didn't Need It, because this kind of cloud that we all have sometimes of like not enough, or I'm not there yet, and we're kind of trained in our own brains of when we're kids of like, you're not there yet, so keep going, keep going, keep going. And that's necessary for us to kind of start the drive of moving through life, right? But if we're just focused on like more of like an addictive behavior of like that dangling carrot, then we're never fully enjoying the moment. So I want you to talk about your story. Why did you choose to take this story? And then what message do you want to share with the readers? Because they're going to be so inspired by what you've written.
Yeah. I This story is a moment in my life where I felt like I was white knuckling like the goal. It was like, I'm an actor, like I'm on, like
Yes.
I need to be on Broadway. Like it's called I Didn't Need It because I felt like I needed it to be okay. Like
Yes.
I needed to be validated. I needed to book the job. I needed to have, like, I needed to prove to myself that I could do it, and everybody else, to just like feel okay,
Mm.
which is something to look at. Like when we're ever feeling like there's something outside that is like, I need this, and if it doesn't happen or it's not happening fast enough, like I'm not okay. Like that's the story I was telling myself. So I was like living in fight or flight mode
Yeah.
all the time of like, I'm not okay because this external thing is going to tell me that I'm okay. That's the only thing that will make me feel okay. So, and I could feel, because this happened right when, right, like I had pretty early success as an actor. Like I moved to New York a year and a half later, I was on Broadway. um that's like,
So fast.
that's good. Like it's
That's
like, okay.
insane fast.
Yeah, and like I was in college, so I was like, I was a senior in college on Broadway, and I was like, okay, this is
Yeah.
like like this is my path to stardom, like it's working.
Yeah.
And then I booked Wicked when I graduated, which I was like, great, next thing, next rung on the ladder. It was like, it
Yeah.
felt like it was happening linearly. And then I did Wicked for a year and a half. And I always like to say, I remember when I got to my hotel room in Houston, that was my first city in Wicked. I got there and I was already like, how am I going to get the next thing? Like, I didn't even start
Yes.
rehearsal yet. And I was already like,
Yes.
more next. Like,
And there you are, like enjoying like such a success, and then you're not able to just be present. I mean, how often do we do this? Yeah.
yeah. And I remember even
Yeah.
seeing like on E News, it was like Selena Gomez was on the news. And I was like, Selena Gomez wouldn't do this job. Like, since when am I like using Selena Gomez as a barometer for like what I do with my life? Like,
And
what?
meanwhile, Selena Gomez is probably like, oh my God, that would be so amazing to actually have that opportunity. Like, like we never know what
Maybe,
it's like,
like, yeah,
you know?
how could I know? But I was just like seeing her on as like, she's better. Like she's where she is better. Like she's more famous than me.
Wow.
She's more successful. It
Yeah.
was just like,
Yeah.
so I feel like a
Mm.
lot of the time when I was in Wicked, I wished it away because I
Yeah.
was just thinking about the next thing. Like I was so,
Mm.
it was amazing and I was so grateful, but it was like more, like, how do I get to the next thing? And so when I came back to New York and I didn't have a schedule, I didn't have school or Wicked to give me a schedule or a structure. I was just like, what do I do with myself? And I really went to like something I teach my clients, and one of my coaches talks about is high and low value cycles. And it's like when things are like working, like what are we thinking and feeling when things are working out versus like when it feels like, what are we thinking and feeling when we're in white knuckling? And I love that you said the childlike, thank you for saying that. Like, you see me as like approaching life with this sort of childlike or
Yeah.
playful way. And
Yeah.
it's when I white knuckle, it feels like nothing's happening. And when I like remember to release the reins, and I just like, what would feel good right now? Even if it's like getting a different job or like resting or like going on a vacation or like not going, like what it's like, would feel what would feel like I could if I took my hands off the wheel and just like, what would be fun again?
Mm-hmm.
That's when things start to get easy. And that's
Yes.
when things start to happen. So
That's when things
this,
start to flow. That's why, I connected the second chakra with your particular story, because the second chakra isn't just about the inner child. It's about really connecting with that flow, that creative energy. And if we're just trying to white knuckle it, we're not in that creative freedom space at all. We're trying to force an outcome. We're trying to manipulate. We're trying to push. And then we feel so locked down in our own energy, and we're not
yeah,
able to tap in also to that co-creative energy when we're getting those nudges of like, hey, this is not the right way, and you're like, but it's gotta be,
but it has to be. It's like,
yeah,
it's
and you
like, okay.
try to turn,
Yeah.
I like
And
that
it's
white
the,
knuckle on the wheel thing,
yeah,
because
because
that's what we try and do, and it's like we can't overcome the force of nature that is drawing us in a direction. We just can't.
no.
So yeah, love
And it's
that.
like it's also like you could white knuckle it. Like you, okay, you
Yeah,
don't
oh,
have
I've tried
like,
many times and I've always
yeah,
failed.
yeah. It's like you can, but like
Yeah, good
what
luck with that.
what is that, like what is that showing you? Like life is showing you when it's
Yes.
not easy, there's something that like you're not either trusting or you're trying to control. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, so in this story, I thought it was such a cool moment in my life because I did feel like I was white knuckling for a long time. And then when I started taking chakra yoga classes,
Yeah.
which it was like, oh, this is cool. Like it just started to like, that felt cool. Like it felt good. I was so like, I was making acting so serious. And then like, that
Mm-hmm.
just felt like, oh, this is a cool thing I'm learning. And
Yeah.
so even being like becoming a yoga teacher felt like, oh, this is also interesting to me. Like maybe it's not just, and it wasn't that I was giving up acting, but it was just like, this is also cool.
See, I think
So
this is really important to highlight, especially for the actors. I have young actors in my family too, or like, have this desire, but anybody who has a goal, it's like you have permission to change. It doesn't mean that you're giving up on something because you're not good enough, or you're not, like, if something else is calling you, we are not designed, I do not believe that we are designed, maybe some people, to be one trick ponies. We have life is way too cool and multifaceted, and to just give up on everything because you must be taken seriously, or feel like this is your one trick to go in that direction, to go in that trajectory, or you're a week, not enough, you gave up. Like, I mean, that's the kind of what we're drilled in our heads if we change directions. And if one thing we've all learned during this lockdown period, so many people are rediscovering who they are and getting a breath of fresh air into the stagnation that they've been living, and saying, no, I need to do something different. And then, that voice, the fraudulent voice comes in like, but you've tried so hard, worked so hard to get there. Like, you need to keep going. You're like, but I don't wanna. Like, I don't want this anymore.
yeah. Or even like, you think about famous actors. Think about, it's
Yeah.
like they have a clothing line, they have a
Yes.
restaurant, they have investment, like they have families. It's like,
Yeah.
so it's like to have, you have the goal, but it's like, that doesn't mean that there's no other parts of you. I remember like,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I think Natalie Roy was is a yoga teacher and an actor. And I remember like working with her and being like, man, she's an actor and a coach. Like she does both things. And I thought that was like the best thing ever. It's like she gets to do it all. Like that felt like,
Yeah.
and I think she might have said to me, like, we're not meant to just be, it's like, oh, it's like you're the rainbow and you're just, it's like acting as red. It's like, but I'm red. But it's like you're also blue
Everything.
and green.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what are those colors? Which is so fun because the book is also the chakra is rainbow.
It's
It's like
rainbow.
yeah, it's like you're not just
Yeah.
you're actually a lot of
Life is
things.
so much fuller than just picking one
Yeah.
color, guys. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe like
Mm.
you going over to do this other thing you like, maybe you meet a director in your yoga class that's like, oh, I'm doing this film. Or maybe even at like your
Yeah.
job that you're just like feels good to make, just to like feel like you're making money for a while. Like even if that's just like, oh, it just feels nice to just be able to pay my all the bills. And
Mm-hmm.
then somebody comes in and you start talking to them and they're a producer. It's like
Right.
you were
Or maybe
supposed to
you
be
do
there.
something that you like, you need yourself for your own human development. Like,
Yeah.
we all want to have success, and like maybe I'm going to meet somebody and network, and but then we also have like also this thing where it's like, well, if I don't, then this was a waste of time. We need to search out and alchemize all of our experiences so we can draw out the most gold and the most value for whatever we're doing. Because what's the goal? Is the goal to be on Broadway? You check that off before you graduated college, right? So what's the goal? I mean, I've worked with billionaires, I've worked with all kinds of A-list celebrities. The goal is not that kind of success. The goal is inner peace. The goal is being
Yeah.
able to wake up, feel free, feel purposeful, feel really good in your own skin, and no amount of money or success is going to do that.
Yeah. That's so good. And the way I think it even comes back to the story is when like just bringing all that back, it's like, oh, when I was allowed to just follow what felt good, like
Mm,
teaching all the yoga felt good. And then it was like, wait, I also miss acting. And then when I allowed
yeah.
the, it's like, oh, wait, that would be fun again. Like it was fun again now. It wasn't, I need this to be okay. Cause like I was okay. Like I
You allowed
was
an ebb
do
and flow, like that
yeah.
watery energy, that second chakra energy. You allowed yourself to kind of dip in here and then go there, and look what you
Yeah.
uncovered. Like you uncovered you, you know.
Yeah. And I think that moment was so cool because it was such a like a blueprint for the rest of my life. And I felt like telling other people that, like, oh, like you can change, like what if you are being called to change course? Like what if
Yeah.
like, and I think that is like a lifelong, it's almost like a skill to be able to listen to that. And like
Yes.
we're not like your whole life can be like, oh, now I'm here. 6 months from now, I might be in a different place. Like
Mm.
it's good to like check in and just think what would feel fun now, what would, and then you might come back around to the thing or it might lead you to another thing, but
Yes.
it feels like a dance. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and I'm seeing Sandra on here. I'm seeing some great people joining us for this live. It's like,
She's giving
you
like
know, yeah, I love you, Sandra. I miss you,
yeah.
girl. I wish you were here with me in Salt Lake. It's also like, you might ebb and flow into these different parts of you. Sandra's also an author for this book, by the way, if you want to check her out.
Yeah,
But it's like
Sandra.
also life could be gone tomorrow. Like, I mean, life is so precious, and if we can just remember that, to take full advantage of whatever we're doing at any time, and not focus on the failure of something that's kind of not, the door's kind of closing, but go, okay, the door closed and a window opens. We always hear that saying, but we don't fully take advantage of that mentality. So, I can't wait for people to read your book or read your story in the book, and also
Your
just
book.
yeah, my book. That's right. That's right. That's right. It's people are like, did you write this? I'm like, well, no, yes, kind of. Like I had 52 other authors helping me, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you too, and just ask you one more question before we tie up. This, I've been leading women's circles. I know the power of sharing, and for 20 years I've been leading women's circles, teaching for 20 couple years about the chakras, and I didn't realize how powerful storytelling was until I did this. Like I knew sharing is like one of the most beautiful things we can do for ourselves, to express our own experience, to own our own process and our own story, and to be able to understand the traumas we've been through, or the disappointments we've been through, or the pitfalls more so. And then it's so valuable for the people listening, because they can reap the benefit of standing on our shoulders and learning the lessons that we have already learned, even though it's not the same exactly as going through it, but have that wisdom so that when they face those things, they go, oh, you know what? Lindsay did this. And like, what if I did that? That's one of the gifts we have to give each other is our story. So just very briefly, as we're tying up, you wrote this story, you wrote it down. It's a pivotal moment in your life. What did you get out of writing the story? Because at the end of the book, I don't know if you've seen it at the end, but there's a little few pages that are blank for people to author their own stories here at the end of the book.
Yes.
So it's so important. People can be like, oh, I don't have a story compared to that person. Nobody knows what it's like to be in your shoes. You don't know what it's like to be theirs. Like, it's so critical to remember that your story is your story, regardless of, you don't want to compare it with, it's almost like you're saying comparing your singing or your success with somebody outside, like it was a A-list celebrity or something. It's like, no,
Selena
like
Gomez.
stop. Like, you don't know what they've been through. You don't know what you've been through. So what is the
Yeah.
benefit of you writing this story for you? Like, what was the therapeutic element for you?
Um, well, I want to thank you for asking me because it was in 2020 and it was such a beautiful, like, as I was kind of sitting at my house, like, what do I do? I was sort of just feeling lost and sort of
Yeah.
blank slate. Like, what do I do? But even that, like, whenever we're saying, like, what am I doing? We forget, it's like we forget all the things we've done. So I think
Yeah.
writing it down was like,
Yes.
oh yeah, like
Yeah, I'm pretty
I'm pretty
awesome, right? Yeah,
badass.
you
Like,
totally, you are. I
like,
know this.
yeah,
We
like
forget
that.
this. We forget this. That was the whole point of writing the story, is
Yeah.
getting people to focus on that.
Yeah. I think so. I think it was just being able to look back at my journey, and you're so right. It is to write it down makes it seem like, oh yeah, like I'm the lead in in this
Yes.
story. Like I'm the lead character. So that it's not like we can get I think humans, it's like if things are not at the what we think is the peak, it's like, well, I'm a failure. Like, what even am I doing? Where am I? It's like you're in the middle of your, like, you're on chapter 4. Like
Exactly.
you don't read a story, like
You're
this
like
isn't the
halfway up
end of this.
Everest. Enjoy the view. Like,
Yeah, yeah, like
look how far you've
look where
come.
yeah, and like what did you learn from that? And now where do you want to go? And it's also like, what does the end of the story look like? What do you want it to look like? And how,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just fun to remember that, like, you're in the middle of it
Yeah.
instead of like, oh, this is all I'll ever do, or like this is the end. Like if
Yeah.
this is just like chapter 4, that was just so fun because it was like, oh yeah, look at all the things I did. And now I'm here and it was like, there's a pandemic, but
Yeah.
I'm not, like, it's not the end of my book. Like, oh, the
Right.
pandemic happens on chapter 4. Like that's actually like an exciting chapter. Like
Yes.
in terms
Pivotal
of,
chapter.
it's like a, it's like a pivotal, like, oh, like some shit hit the fan. Like that was a challenge. Like that was a challenge. That was a dark
Yes.
time. That was a sad time. It was traumatizing, but like,
Yeah.
what's in chapter 5 and 6? Like what happened after that? So that was so fun to write down and make me think like, oh yeah, when I just, and you know what? I think it even really helped me think about what would be fun, even in like when I was at home at my parents' house, thinking about like what would even be fun to make like what could I make money doing that would be fun. It's like
Mm.
people
Mm-hmm.
are
Mm-hmm.
still working. Like I'm still able-bodied, I'm smart, like I have the
Yeah.
internet, like I
Yeah.
like, because it's not, collecting unemployment wasn't fun. And it
Right.
was like, what would be fun? I like did a lot of yoga with my friend Emily. Like it was like, that would feel good to just like move my body still, and maybe like offer a Zoom yoga class or like teach there. It just got me back into creative mode of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what would be fun again. So that was, I mean, that helped me to get back into the mode of like, that worked for me when I went back to what would feel good, what was fun. And I just decided to do that during COVID. And like I met my like I met my partner.
I
Like,
love it. I love it. I
it's
love
like,
it. Yeah.
it was just like, that would be kind of like, that would be cool. I don't know, I guess. And
Joy is so
yeah.
powerful when we listen to the joy in our heart. And some people who hear like, I just did whatever felt good, they'll be like, oh well, you can't live like that because blah blah blah, and they'll go to the extreme of like thinking, you know, that you're going to become this heathen.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's not what we're talking about here, guys. So this is about like connecting with your heart, like with your inner child, the joy in your heart, the playfulness, the creativity that's in that second chakra, and being able to listen to that so that we're not tolerating, surviving life. We're playing and creating and being able to enjoy what we're doing here. And if you're not enjoying what you're doing, and it's easier said than done, 100%, it is challenging to make a change. If you dare to turn a page or even step outside of where you've been, I feel like I am always rewarded when I do that. Even though it's so scary, I feel like I'm always rewarded. Even if it's a
Yeah.
difficult, challenging conversation, or getting on a live. Some authors, this is their first live, you know? Like getting in front of people and going, oh my gosh, people are watching this and I can't take
Yeah.
this back. And I've got a washing machine behind me. Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
But like that whole thing, you know, it's just like dare to mess up, to dare to make a mistake, dare to get outside of what you think you're controlling, because the truth is anything can happen at any time. Anything can
Yeah.
happen.
I love what you said to clarify that too. Like, it's not just what would be like, what would feel so good. It's like, what would just be a real, like, even if it's like, what would be like a relief? Like, finally
Yes.
having that conversation, like,
Yes.
what would just like take the pressure off? Like, oh, actually, like saying no to that thing or taking a nap. Like, what would just
Mm.
be like, what would make you just feel a little bit better even is because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it is almost a big jump to go like what would be fun or what do I want to do sometimes like that feels too far
True.
away, so it's just
Yes.
like what would feel like a relief, because the relief is usually an indication of the truth. So
And our bodies are way smarter than our brains are. So we try and override them all the time. And our bodies are like, hello, I need this now. And you're like, no, because we need to do this because we're not enough and need to do this because we failed today. And it's like,
yeah.
So I think that I love that also, like what would feel like a release, what would feel like a relief of pressure, or stop fighting. I mean, the
Yeah.
Buddhists say like a root of all suffering comes from resistance of all suffering. So it's like if you stop
Yeah.
pushing, you start pushing, you know, relax that and just receive, stop pushing, that is
Yeah.
also going to be very much a sense of relief. So,
Hmm.
well, Lindsey, I'm so excited you were able to join me this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How do we follow you? Just give your handles there real quick, and I
Yeah.
want people to be able to connect with you.
Yeah. So at Lindsey Brett is my Instagram, and then Lindsey Brett Carothers on Facebook. All my stuff is mostly there. Like I have links in Instagram, and my email will be there too. So you can find me there. Yeah.
Awesome. And those of you who are interested in the book, it is such a helpful guide. You don't have to go through sequentially. You don't have to go through on a timeline. If you're one of these people who has all these books on your shelf that you never finished because it was like a year planner or something like that, this you can go through. You can take a break for like a month or two and then come back and then dive back in where you need to dive back in and use it as a tool that's ongoing. Because there's just too much wisdom in this book from all these 52 authors who have shared very personal stories and just things from their life that can be supportive to you. So thank you so much, Lindsey, for joining me this morning. Thank you all for
Thank
watching
you.
live or in replay. And yeah, go check her out. And just, she has so much inspiring content as well in what she offers. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, keep raising the vibration. All right, bye, everybody.